I was raised in a blue-collar family. Organized labor made my parents jump to the middle class possible. This gave me access to healthcare and education. When my grandmother was young, she was fired for humming while she canned pickles in a pickle factory. My earliest memories have the envelopes of Union letterhead around the house. I worked the summers in high school. My first job that wasn't babysitting was at a restaurant called Burgerville when I was 16. I'm not making that up. You should look into it. Later, I waited tables, often the graveyard shift, at a local chain. Think of Denny's, but more rundown and closer to going bankrupt. By the time I'd make it home in the mornings, my feet would be so swollen I thought they would burst. It was at that moment in my life I decided I would always tip 20%, no matter what the service was like. Later, I worked at Starbucks, arriving early to open the store, other times staying past close to clean. I've always had deep respect and appreciation for those who labor, especially those who labor on my behalf. Earlier in the pandemic, my heart broke when I read that Instacart customers would lure the shoppers with a high tip and then take it back after the groceries were delivered. It was cruel. Often, I'll see people drop a good deal of money on a meal or a personal care service only to be stingy on the tip because it's extra, and they get to decide who's worth that extra. But the tip isn't extra. Last year, Time magazine reported that starting in 1938, employers only had to pay tipped workers a wage that would add up to the federal minimum wage when combined with tips. The main federal minimum wage is $7.25 for hourly workers, and for tipped workers, it's $2.13 an hour. You can't buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks for that, and that's before taxes. Only 7 states out of 50 mandate that all workers, regardless of tips, must be paid the full state minimum wage before tips. How did we get to this bizarre and unjust practice? The answer, in short, is white supremacy. After the Emancipation Proclamation, African Americans were freed from slavery on paper, yet no one would pay them for their work. In America's long-standing tradition of building its economy on the exploitation of Black labor, people would hire Black workers as servants, waiters, barbers, railroad porters, but not pay them. The condition is that they would get a small tip. And so slavery continued, simply with a small tip added by white employers or patrons. The service industry and restaurant industry took to this well over time because employers didn't have to, and still don't, pay even the minimum wage, except in those 7 states. The practice has stuck. So tip generously and always. But let that not be enough. Labor must be reformed because this is a basic justice issue. At the heart of our Unitarian Universalist first principle is to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people. COVID is shining a light on the disparities that have been here all along. This is not new, but we can see it more clearly, those of us who might not have had access to the view. The virus shows us how we are all interconnected. When workers don't have sick time, it's not only a danger to them and their families, it's a danger to everyone. We are all connected. On this Labor Day of COVID-19, when 1/4 of laborers in our country are unemployed, and many who do have jobs work hourly on tip jobs with no paid leave, health care, please take the time to advocate for justice and public safety, because most of these workers are also oppressed by our systems of white supremacy. They are Black and people of color. Here are 3 things you can do in quarantine. Call your alderman to advocate for the passage of the Chicago Paid Emergency Sick Leave Ordinance. You can find more information at arisechicago.org. 2. Register to vote if you haven't already. If you wish to vote by mail, sign up for mail-in voting now. You have just a couple of more weeks left in the city of Chicago to register to vote by mail. Go to www.chicagoelections.gov. 3. Go to UU the Vote and find ways you can get out the vote. This is a nonpartisan voting advocacy campaign. Our UU organizers are currently looking for phone banking volunteers for Wisconsin Wednesdays, and we need your help. Visit uuthevote.org or sign up for text messages at Vote Love. To quote the late Congressman of Minnesota, Paul Wellstone, we all do better when we all do better. And we can all do better, and we must. There is too much at stake, and our lives literally depend on it.